welcome to the Lifestyles Learning podcast with City Skills. I am your host, Sam Do. I am the Head of Business Development and Partnerships at City Skills. We are an apprenticeship training provider and also looking at other areas of training as well. We specialise in lots of different areas. The Lifestyles Learning podcast is not just about apprenticeships though. We talk about everything to do with learning and development, career progression, CPD, developing yourself, anything where somebody is developing themselves or looking to continuously improve, and look at the benefits associated with that with individuals and businesses alike. So lots of different content coming from us with lots of different avenues. Our first podcast today is an introduction to one of our to City Skills and one of our co-founders. That is Richard Humden. You'll get to know a little bit more about City Skills, what we're all about, and how we came to be as we are, and where we're going in the future. So I hope to all of our partners and our accounts and any new people, you get to experience a little bit about us and a little bit about our culture. If you like what you see or want to know more, then obviously please visit our website at www.city-skills.com or speak to one of your current account managers and we'll have a meeting. Perfect. Well, this is our City Skills' first video / podcast. So hopefully we can give some value to our current partners, as well as external people that are trying to find a little bit more about us. So this information is going to go onto our website as well, so people can click on it, and if they've never seen us before, they can get to know me and you, Rich, in the first instance before they speak to anyone else. So the motivation for this first episode really is to give people a better understanding about who we are, what we do, and what we're all about, really. And no better person to help me on this episode than the co-founder, Rich. So, Rich, if you want to introduce yourself, that'd be fab, and then I'll do the same.
Yeah, cool. So I'm Rich Humden. I'm one of the co-founders of City Skills. Myself and a chap called Nick Worsey started the company in 2017. We basically reviewed what we've been doing. We're both fairly experienced in apprenticeships with sort of 20 odd years of time in the sector, so we knew roughly what was going on. Come from a very different background, both from leisure, and had gone into sort of assessment in those sort of areas and tutoring, and been the sort of journeyman of apprenticeships, having done most sort of roles in those areas in that sector. And we thought about it, just both of us were nailed on that we could do it differently and do it better. So that's what we're trying to do. I'm not saying we're doing it perfectly, but we're definitely doing it a bit differently to everybody else. The journey's been a sort of fairly long and arduous one over that period. So when you first came into the business, you couldn't just open an apprenticeship training provider. There's hoops to jump through, and we had to go and work through and jump through all of those hoops. So found myself doing consultancy for the first couple of years while we were doing that, which, whilst challenging and sometimes really rewarding, is actually also sometimes really frustrating. People that are consultants full-time, and fair play to you, I just don't know how you manage to switch off the giving people advice and then they're not taking it up, because it is hugely annoying. On top of that, did a load of bid writing stuff. Sorry, Sam. What
types of businesses do you work with when you were doing the consultancy?
Yeah, so they were predominantly apprenticeship training providers, but also training providers of other funding streams as well. So I think it's because apprenticeships make up the bulk of what we do. Is, we often get caught up in apprenticeships, but there's lots of other funding streams that people do solely work in different areas. So things like adult education budget, Department of Work and Pensions based funding, that sort of thing. But they all have similarities. They're all about taking somebody on a journey across a period of time. They all have the same hoops to jump through. So some of the more technical stuff, which I had sort of forced myself to learn over a number of years, people don't have that expertise. So they might be brilliant at training, but they don't have much understanding or background in some of the other areas. So the stupid stuff we have to do, like actually presenting that information to government and that sort of thing, using some of the sort of more technical setup. So did a fair bit on strategy with some as well, and also around sort of opening doors. So how you work in partnership within what are quite strict funding rules. So things like subcontracting come in, and how you organise subcontracting, how you organise the use of freelance staff, all those sorts of things as well. So it was it was a great learning curve, if I'm completely honest. I got to use a load of systems, see a load of people's different models, took bits of some things I thought absolutely never would I do that in that way. And that's the name of the game. It's just exposure. Something I'd like to do again in some ways, something also stuff I hated doing it as well. So I'd be picky and choosy about what I were to do in the future. But right now, City Skills presents with more than enough to do on a day-to-day basis to fill the day. But we've great leadership team behind us now, so hopefully more and more will be taken off of my hands and give me more bandwidth to do some of that stuff. So.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, we're talking to new clients, it puts us in a strong position. Because when we talk about working with new partners and newer clients, whether they're small or large, public or private, we say that the company was born out of consultancy. So we've seen a lot of what the good looks like.
Yeah,
we can sort of cherry pick and do something of our own. So yeah, I think it puts us in a strong position when we're talking to future partners. We've seen a large breadth of different things in the sector.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Okay, so I suppose that sort of leads me on to me. My name is Sam Do. I'm the host of the podcast going forward, and hopefully we'll have some really good engaging content for you all. My position in the company at the moment is head of business development and partnerships. So my team, we look after all the accounts, whether small or large, and essentially try and maximize the experience that the businesses are getting and the impact that they get from the apprenticeship programs. So as part of our sort of process, if you like, we'll do a training needs analysis with the business and figure out exactly from a B2B perspective what they want the impact to be. As well as, we measure the impact for our learners. It allows us to use that impact statement throughout the periods of the performance management. Is it doing what they wanted it to do? Yes, no. What do we need to do about that to keep them in line with that? Because ultimately, that's why businesses should be doing apprenticeships. So that's me. I came on in, when was it? October 2020, which was it? Something along those lines. September, October.
Big pandemic.
Yeah. So it was really good timing. And we've probably known each other for 10 years, at least.
At least that, yeah. At least that. 2020. No, longer. Yeah, probably more like 15, I think.
Yeah. So you've been in training longer than me, but I've probably been in it for at least 10, 11 years plus, something like that. And yeah, we've known each other for a while. And I think the opportunity came where you were at a point that you needed some more help. And luckily enough, you came to me to see whether I wanted to join the team. Obviously knowing you and Nick from a previous life, I knew that it was a good path to go down. So that's pretty much me. Do marketing as well, which is why I'm doing the podcast. But ultimately it's about maximizing our client experience. And one of those is giving them good communication. And this is the sort of justification for the podcast, really. Lovely jubbly. Right. So let's move on to the next bit, really. Let's talk about City Skills. Like why City Skills? Why have we chosen these particular programs and the tagline, and what was the motivator for that, really?
Yeah, definitely. So let's take a step back in time. I think Nick and I, it's quite a fun stage when you're first in that brainstorming part. So Nick and I were back and forth WhatsApp messages and chats and stuff, and we're like, what do we want to be? Where do we want to operate? Who do we want to operate with? Those sorts of things. And we had a really great opportunity in the centre of London. We aligned it. We kept going around, like something to do with city and skills, like this the city skills. It landed.
Makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And is it taken? No, it's not. Great, fantastic. So we get that nailed down quickly. Really, it was about portraying that, at that initial point, it was about being in the city, but we wanted to try and portray that it's the roles in which we're trying to look after are about leaders, people in management positions, coaching positions, and they're really the pebble in the pond, the people that centre that can impact an entire business. It's also sentiment, I guess, to the fact that we originally wanted to work mostly with large employers. So I imagine most people that come to this the podcast will understand what a levy paying employer is, but it's a large employer that has over 3 million in wage bills, and they pay a tax effectively, and that tax has replaced what was a budget once upon a time for apprenticeship training, and they get access to that money, and if they don't use it, all the small businesses beyond them get access to that money in the future. But you know, that was the system as it was. So we needed to attract large employers at that point, because that was where the majority of the funding sat. So yeah, since then we've started working with quite a fair number of SMEs actually now, haven't we? Because we've broadened our model so that we could impart that training and that experience that we were doing just with large cohorts from one employer into, if you've got one or two people, you can filter that into the same cohort and still get the same benefit. I'd argue in some ways they get a better experience with one or two apprentices going into those cohorts because of the sharing of ideas, which is a sort of one of those unconsidered sort of benefits of doing that sort of national cohort approach that we do now. That's not to take anything away. You know, big employers that want something that's really quite bespoke to them, obviously we'll do that, and we'll do that in the way that they want to do it, and it'll be highly effective. But I love the idea of the networking behind the sort of national cohorts that we do. So pebble in the pond, we drop something in the middle, and it spreads out, and it moves to everybody. And that's where we started, and also centered to that model as well has always been about cohort learning. So I guess one of the frustrations I always had with this sector, having done the role, was the model that we generally had to work at, which meant lone working, driving all around the countryside, meeting somebody in a coffee shop or in the corner of an office, squeezed in the broom cupboards I was in at some points trying to do training. Sometimes I got really good at squatting with a laptop on my knees. I was brilliant at it. I could balance a laptop on my knees talking to somebody. And it just wasn't the training that I wanted to be able to deliver when we were delivering it. So we put right at the heart of it that it needs to be a group cohort model. It meant that there could be more interaction, more opportunity for people to talk, more opportunity for learning. And that was a sensible decision as far as cost as well. It means that, you know, everyone benefited from that. It meant the amount of touch points that we could put in were greatly increased compared to just seeing once every month for an hour or 2 hours. We're seeing people fortnightly, weekly, varying on the different models, sometimes monthly, but then also having a lot of progress reviews on top of the teaching and learning sessions. It meant that we could turn around marking faster. So yeah, really important about, you know, where we went to. And I think Nick and I, we had aspirations from day one, but those aspirations had to evolve because actually we found that we were enjoying what we were doing, and it was growing, and it was going in the right direction. So that meant bringing on the right people. So we had lots of conversations, and Nick and I are both great at chatting and not necessarily formalising stuff as we go. But we wanted to build a culture of people who want to get the job done for the right reasons. We wanted people to come in and go on a journey with us and achieve something. So early days, we made choices around selecting people. So Sam, big-headed coming up now, but we chose people who worked with in the past, who were the nicest people that we worked with, who actually got it, who got on, knew how to get a job done, smiled every day, had lots of funny conversations. You know, this is what we wanted to achieve. We want to enjoy work, not just turn up and do it. And we've been really, really lucky to be able to have timely, you know, in a timely way, be able to pick people up at the right time. So, you know, yourself, the Matt, who works obviously in quality, Ian, who heads up operations, just great people we've worked with for many a year. Becky, Claire, Paul previously, and ongoing. And, you know, there's loads of people that we'd been lucky enough to work with that we could just cherry pick and bring in. And with that, because we knew those people would fit with the culture we were trying to achieve, those people have then resourced their departments or their other people looking at it the same way.
Yeah, you sort of, without formalizing the culture, you know what it is by the people that you've worked with in the past.
Yeah, absolutely.
The behaviors that they display, or how they are day in, day out, that was the culture. And that ends up becoming a longer piece around when we actually eventually formalize what our culture was.
Yeah.
And essentially it's the behavior of the people that we've employed, and they all fit under the same umbrella.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's so we've done it very informally, but it took Ian to come in and say, look, we need to be able to verbalize this really well. And I was, oh yeah, good point. Yeah,
we know it and we feel it, but we
Yeah.
don't know. And how does anybody else know it?
Yeah, and it was just a really important sort of a really pivotal time, actually, because Ian's like, look, I want to be able to articulate this really easily to people that come in. It's great from your point of view, Sam, because like you can now articulate it really quickly and easily. So it was a really great whiteboard exercise that we did, and we just put down it. Is it our purpose? I guess a big part of it's our purpose, but it was the why are we doing this? We wanted people to be able to buy into why we were doing it. I'm really proud of what we turned out with the DNA, because we pulled together a million words, kept whittling them down until we came into something that actually made a bit of sense. And without going through it into minutiae detail, I don't know, you might want to, Sam, but the DNA is developing, nurturing in our approach. And so we want to develop people, we want to influence cultures of organizations, we want to build great relationships internally, externally. We want to nurture through passion. So everybody's excitement and love for the role, be authentic, innovate, and using integrity in our people. So making sure that, we have the right people doing the right things. And then our approach is, as I've said, really, I guess, or you're bringing it up, fantastic. But we wanted blended learning. So it isn't all e-learning, it isn't all one-to-one in the corner of a coffee shop. But all of those bits, apart from the coffee shop part, have a role to play. So we wanted to be inspiring. So we want the teaching and learning to be top notch. And we've always said, Nick and I, the one thing I never want a problem with is the quality of the teaching and learning that's going on. So we'd only employ the best people to do that part. And sometimes that makes our delivery quite expensive, and we have to take that, that burden. But it means we can attract people that I think will always want to come back. And I think they'll tell their friends about it. They'll tell their colleagues about it, that sort of thing. And the real thing as well is legacy as well. I think bring that lifelong impact in. I think the title of this podcast sort of lends itself towards that as well, because it is an ongoing process. Yes, apprenticeships are a part of it, but actually we want to encourage the right behaviours for people. We want people to continue to learn. So that might mean somebody going for another apprenticeship or another different training program with us down the line. But actually, a lot of the time it won't. It's just encouraging people to be CPD orientated, or maybe wanting to develop their colleagues.
I think there's a good spot as well, Rich, to say, why we decided to pick the type of programs.
Yeah.
That we deliver. I think because it's, our tagline is, the people developing the people.
Yeah.
We've worked in training and development a long time, and we know the programs that we have, we can all buy into, and we all love it. So it means that everybody that's associated with the programs has got a buy-in, because they love it. They love the programs. They love what we do, and then that builds, our culture.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no specific programs. If we think about what they are, we were like, what's our strengths? Like, what are we good at? And that's where we started with. So leadership. I'm not saying I am, but across the business, we've got some great leaders. We looked at learning and development. It was a really obvious move. So we started doing quite a lot of work within schools. So we work with teaching assistants, for instance, obviously impact the day-to-day life of pupils by giving them additional support. We worked on a lot of teachers to enhance their coaching capabilities. So that's sort of where we bloomed and blossomed at that earlier stage, was in that particular field with schools, because they do have a big black hole between being a great teacher and getting promoted. So a lot of teachers are great at teaching, therefore they get promoted because they've got some capability in perhaps leadership or an organization or coaching, whatever it is. but then they didn't get that formal training part, and that's where we came in to support those. And because that was doing well, like, well, we can apply these same techniques and models to everything. So the really obvious link was into learning and development. And actually we're saying, who else supports people? Well, the backbone of most businesses is HR when it comes to that element, and looking after people on a day-to-day basis, putting the company first, but also making sure everyone's treated fairly and equitably. So yeah, some really obvious sort of links in over years, over the time now. Coaching's evolved into coaching professional from where we were previously, so less of an educational slant, but yeah, big on coaching specifically. And then we've also got entry-level routes. I think that's the other thing, that's important. Whilst our focus is very much on sort of higher level apprenticeships, level 4 upwards, the bulk of what we do, we needed entry-level routes as well. So younger people are encouraged into that environment. They'll hopefully then be the leaders of the future, managers of the future, and so on. So we deliver things like business administration as an entry-level route, predominantly, not solely, but predominantly in that area, and that attracts sort of younger demographic. And I guess then the other thing we looked at is improvement, isn't it? That's become a big part of what we do. So improvement at level 4 and level 6. And the reason that's so important is about getting more for less, right? So it's about giving people more time back potentially, or giving people, enhancing the bottom line, because you can eliminate some unnecessary steps in processes. It's a really exciting field. Obviously lends itself from Lean Six Sigma and the Toyota way and those sorts of areas. So it's brilliant for business, but also great for the people that are involved. So it's big, generally larger projects, but actually it impacts everybody onto the floor level as well, because more profitable businesses mean more job security, mean more opportunity for promotion, and so on. So yeah, it's exciting.
Perfect. So fabulous. We've covered us, City Skills, how we came about, how we're sort of evolving. So that might be a good next step. Where are City Skills going? What's the plan with City Skills in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. So sensible, sustainable growth has always been the area that we want to be, not just growing overnight for the sake of it, chucking in hundreds of learners at a time. Because again, seen historically the pain points that can create.
Yeah.
Anyone we've worked with that's watching this, we're like, yeah. And it can make or break a lot of people, and often it breaks a lot of people. So we didn't want to be in a position where actually we were always all hands to the pump. We wanted a bit of spare capacity to be able to grow and do things sensibly. So this year we've got a really important thing coming up at some point soon, which will be Ofsted. We hope we will wow them in some areas. We know we're not perfect, so we know we'll have some areas of development to walk away with as well. But that any provider that goes into any sort of Ofsted inspection saying differently is either deluded or a lying, because even if you get outstanding, you definitely have areas of improvement to take away and do. And that's a really important part for us, because I think, we, without saying too much, we very much hope to get a good and be on a good side of good. That's sort of where we think we are, where we internally assess at. But beyond that, we want to be outstanding. So outstanding doesn't just mean that Ofsted badge. It means a lot more to me. It's about customers feeling really excited about what we do and always wanting to use us, and getting what they need out of their training specifically. The Ofsted framework's great, but it's very much about the education side, not necessarily some of the hidden benefits that employers might see and apprentices might see. So that's really important on the roadmap coming up.
That's a really important point, actually, Rich, because we, at the moment, the majority of our partners and customers come to us because of our positive feedback on the final apprenticeship service.
Yeah.
Not based on, obviously we've had a new provider monitoring visit, but they're basing a lot of that, mitigating that risk by looking at what other employers that work with us have said about us, which is overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah,
which is fantastic. But obviously having an Ofsted, grade of approval means that we can, from a growth perspective, and an opportunity perspective with partnerships, we can look to procure much larger opportunities with public entities.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is important. Yeah, absolutely. It opens up a lot of doors because we're already working in that space, but
yeah,
within limited volumes, really, right? So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
that's good. The other thing, so we are a traineeship provider, although we've got a minuscule contract really at the moment, and we could service a lot more. We could do a lot more. Unfortunately, though, Robert Halfon announced in December the end of traineeships as we know them, so they won't be their own sort of funding line anymore. But we have procured for non-devolved adult education budget, which hopefully we would win. And I think that's an area that we could do some really great stuff in, because we'd still maintain that sort of traineeship style delivery, which is effectively getting people work ready and matching them with an employer to have work experience to ultimately get a job. It's a really nice, fulfilling element of what we do, because you do see, we've got a great run rate of actually people going into full and meaningful employment at the end of what they do with the traineeship. So we'd want to see that continue. But one thing I think that will be great if we do get this non-devolved stuff is it is going to be more flexible. So it's about the sector, and we'll be able to choose differing amounts of work experience. It might be that we want to give people 200 hours of work experience because that's what would suit them better, opposed to the sort of 70 as it's been set historically. So exciting times hopefully ahead on that front. The other area I think we could do something that's really quite special would be advanced learner loans, which we hope will come up again following an Ofsted grade. One of the spaces we work in obviously is HR. As HR provider, we work with CIPD and deliver, amongst other things, level 5 management diploma, people development diploma. I always forget the language around that. Sam's nodding, going, yeah, that one, yeah.
That one, the
level
last
5,
one.
Yeah, but the level 5 CIPD diploma, and we're doing it really well. I genuinely think we're doing it really, really well, and I think there's a great opportunity if people could learn alone, fund that with us. They'd love our experience and what we do. I'm quite, whilst I'm not from an HR background, I do quite a lot of reading and obviously market research around what people are doing in that space. And genuinely, I think we provide more touch points. We provide flexible learning. We've got amazing coaches. We could do some really good stuff with learner loans just to fund those areas. So very hopeful with a good Ofsted grade, that'll be a space that we'll be in within the next 12 months as well.
Right. Fabulous. Well, I think for this particular episode, we've covered quite a lot. I don't want to bore our audience too much more, but I think it does give them a really good understanding around us and where we've come from, and now where we're going. We're going to have lots more of other podcasts, which I'm sure Rich will be involved in anyway, to get his area of expertise. And we'll probably go deeper down the rabbit hole with the different areas to do with apprenticeships, like the different benefits to apprenticeships, because we haven't really touched on that today. But there are lots of different reasons, impactful reasons why employers do these programs. And we've got real tangible value that we can feed back to our audience about what happens when you do them and you do it right. So for this particular episode, Rich, thank you very much for your time. Hopefully this will be add some value for our audience for our first ever podcast. And we'll see you on the next one. Thank you for listening to the Learning Lifestyle Podcast, the first podcast by City Skills. Hopefully you've enjoyed that and got to understand a little bit more around City Skills, what we do, and the introduction to Rich, one of our co-founders, and get a little bit of a insight to our culture and on what we do. So hopefully we'll have you on the following podcast. We'll have lots more to do with sector specific stuff and how we solve some problems and issues within certain areas. But if you like learning and development and sort of progressing your own career, then please follow us. And also, if you want to visit or contact us directly, go to our website, www.city-skills.com, or email us at traininginquiries@city-skills.com. And we look forward to seeing you again.